kill their extra mana. Move them down to 2. We get there. Hi there, this is the BigCraigO, and you're about to watch the next installment in our deck tech series. Today we're covering Green Stompy, Mono Green Food. So this is the deck that we'll be reviewing today. You can see straight away that it's all green. It is a mono green deck, so it uses forest to create the mana that's required to power it. And this particular deck revolves around a strategy of getting some large creatures in play and causing maximum amounts of damage to our opponent through just pure brute force. Generally speaking, you'll have a few creatures that have the ability to block and get in the way until you can build up a board state where you can start to really deliver these large creatures. So let's go through and break down the deck. So here is the mana curve of this particular deck. You can see here what we've got on the battlefield, in the decks that are built is 29 creatures, which, as those of you that are familiar with this series I do like my strategies around aggro and lots of creatures. So this definitely fits into that. It's also got 8 non-creatures in the form of other spells, which are designed primarily to augment the creatures that we're bringing to life. The average casting cost across this deck is 2.8, with a number of spells sort of filling in the slots at the 3 and 4 sort of spot casting cost. It basically means that this deck has a lot of things to play in the early game, and then it ramps into some larger and definitely powerful options later on. Okay, so I've got the deck broken down here so that we can go through the individual components. The more astute of you, or those that are familiar with the format, will appreciate that I've moved a few spells around to where they generally get cast, and the ones that have a variable casting cost are put in, so I'll go through that in more detail. Now, Mono Green Stompy, or Green Stompy, has been around since pretty much the start of Magic. So whether it's putting out big massive crawl worms, or whether it's more complex things like Lovestruck Beasts, etc. now, pretty much revolves around getting large creatures into play. Getting a way to ramp up to that is primarily what this deck revolves around. So putting out smaller creatures just to block and get in the way so that your opponent can't do lethal damage before you get in a position where you can actually start to really push your advantage. So we'll start off with the 1 casting cost spells. There's 2 that sit in this particular deck. One of them is a pump spell and one of them is a creature. Pump spell is a variant, it's variable spot. Some people will like to use some sort of hexproof, some people will like to use indestructible. This particular build that I'm showcasing today uses Blizzard Brawl, which is a 1 cast cost, gives +1 to a creature, and that creature fights another creature. It also gets indestructible if you control 3 or more snow-covered creatures or items. That's because of the Kaldheim set that is currently in play, so that's what that spell's for. It's primarily there to give indestructible to a creature and cause it to fight something else. The actual creature that sits in the 1 drop slot is the Swarm Shambler. That particular spell is it's 1 casting cost, comes into play with a 1/1 as a 1/1, and then you can pay 1 extra mana and tap it every turn to add another +1/+1 counter. The big benefit that this has is any creature that has a +1/+1 counter on it that gets targeted by your opponent will create a insect token, which means that you'll be able to actually block and use those to get in the way of your opponent causing you damage. So that's the 1 drops. Moving on to the 2 drops. There's 2 particular 2 drops in this particular build. So there's a Nissan Horn Beetle, which is 1 green, 1 other for a 2/2, and at the start of every combat turn, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, you add a +1/+1 counter onto the Horn Beetle. Also have a Scavenging Ooze. Scavenging Ooze has been a very popular deck, very popular card in many decks, primarily because it has the ability to gain life for you and get larger. This is particularly useful in the current meta with a lot of recursion decks or decks that cast things from their graveyard, because this particular creature has the ability to, for 1 green mana, of exiling a card from your opponent's library or your own, and putting it into exile. Now, if that happens to be a creature, you'll gain 1 life, and the Scavenging Ooze gets a +1/+1. Moving on to the 3-drop slots, there are 3 proper 3-drops, and there's 1 that's actually 4-drop, but we generally will cast them as 3. So the first one is Lovestruck Beast. This card is an all-star. It's been around since Eldraine came into play. Eldraine, sorry. This is a very, very popular card because it gives you the ability to, for 3 mana, 1 green and 2 other, to put a 5/5 creature into play. You also get the ability, it's got a sorcery adventure attached to it, where you can create a 1/1 white human creature token. A new card that's come out with Kaldheim is the Old Growth Troll for 3 green, for a 4/4 Troll Warrior with Trample. The other benefit that this has is that when it dies, if this creature, if it was a creature, return it to the battlefield. If it's now an aura enchantment. With Enchant Forest you control, and Enchanted Forest has tap, add 2 green mana, and you also have the ability to pay 1, tap, sacrifice the land, and create a tapped 4/4 green Troll Warrior creature token with Trample. Say that 5 times fast. Basically what it comes down to is you play it for 3 as a 4/4. When it dies, you can then cast an or you can then enchant one of your forests, sacrifice your forest to become a 4/4 token. That's pretty good. Yorvo, Lord of Garenbrig, for 3 green mana, comes into play with 4 +1/+1 counters. Whenever another green creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Yorvo. Then if that creature's power is greater than Yorvo's power, put another +1/+1 counter. So as you can see, it ramps up, it gets a lot larger. So this is the Trixie 4-drop that's now actually in the 3-drop pot. It's a Gem Raiser, so it's 1 green and 3 other for a 4/4 creature. So it's 4 casting costs, but you can cast it for its mutate cost, which is 2 green and 1 other, which is why it sits in the 3-drop slot here. It has reach, it has trample. Whenever this creature mutates, destroy target artifact or enchantment and opponent control. Quite useful. So we move into the 4-drop slot. We have a single Planeswalker here in the form of Garruk Unleashed. Garruk Unleashed has 3 different modes that you can play. It comes into play with 4 loyalty. For +1, you can add, can give 1 target creature +3/+3 and give it trample. Quite useful. For -2, create a 3/3 green beast creature token. Then if an opponent controls more creatures than you, put a loyalty counter on Garruk. So quite good. And then his ultimate is -7. When you get an emblem at the beginning of your end step, you may search your library for a creature card, put it onto the battlefield, and shuffle your library. Very useful. Run a full play set of 4 questing beasts, 2 green, 2 other for a 4/4 vigilance, death touch, haste. Questing beasts can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. Combat damage that would be dealt by creatures you control cannot be prevented. Questing beast deals damage, combat damage to an opponent. Whenever it does, it deals that much damage to target planeswalker that player controls. So you're getting some extra value there. In the 5-drop slot, this particular deck runs a Vivian Monsters Advocate for 2 green, 3 other for a 3 loyalty planeswalker. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may cast creature spells from the top of your library. It has 2 modes that you can play. The first one is +1, create a 3/3 green beast creature token, put your choice of vigilance counter, reach counter, or a trample counter on it. The other mode is -2, when you cast your next creature spell this turn, search your library for a creature card with lesser converted mana cost to put it onto the battlefield and shuffle your library. Both very, very good options. Runs 2 Great Henges. For anyone who's not familiar, this particular spell costs 2 green and 7 other, although the spell's cost is reduced where X is the greatest power among the creatures you control. So as an example, if you had a 3/3 creature in play, this would not cost you 9 mana. It would cost you 2 green and 4, because the cost of it would reduced by 3 because of the power. You can tap this particular artifact, add 2 green mana, and gain 2 life. That's pretty cool. And whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on it and draw a card. So you can see some of the synergies that happen in this deck. Runs 19 Snow Forest to help the Blizzard Brawl trigger and work. Also Castle Garenbrig. Garenbrig is enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a forest. You can tap it and add 1 green forest. You can pay 2 green and 2 other to tap and add 6 green mana. You can only spend this mana to cast creature spells or activate abilities of creatures. Okay, in that variable slot that I talked about at the start of the breakdown of this deck, there's 2 different spells. One is in the form of the Stone Coil Serpent. Stone Coil Serpent is a snake artifact creature. It has reach and trample and protection from multicolored. Stone Coil Serpent enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. So when you cast it, if you've got 1 mana, you can bring it in as a 1/1. If you cast it and it's got 5 mana, you can bring it in as a 5/5. So it's got that ability to come in at whatever level you've got mana to suit. The last spell that's in this particular main deck is Primal Might, which is 1 green and X. It's a sorcery spell. Target creature you control gets +X until end of turn. And then it fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. So it allows you to use some of your creatures to basically take out other creatures that you need to take out. That might have flying or some other form of evasion. Very useful card. Alright, so that's the main deck. We'll go onto the sideboard now. So basically in this particular series, I just generally will do best of 1, but in this particular one I'll break down just so you can see what's here. So we have another Blizzard Brawl. We have some Chain Web Arachnia for 1 green for a 1/2 that has escape. We have some other types of instant spells which give hexproof. Some more fight cards, some more another ooze, another planeswalker, a couple of large and in charge apes, Vorinclex, which obviously impacts on your ability to make your planeswalkers more powerful, but also helps you to reduce the effectiveness of your opponents, and an extra great one. These would be used for many different reasons, but ultimately we're just going to be playing best of 1 to show. Alright, cool. So that's the deck. Now we'll go on to some gameplay. Okay, so we're just about to start our obligatory match against Sparky, just to talk through the decision making. As I've mentioned previously, we do this just so that people I can talk through and not have the timer side of things. So we'll play 1 game against Sparky just to give you an idea of how the deck should operate, and then I'll go and play a couple of matches so that you can get an idea of what it does against other human opponents. Alright, so just looking at this hand here, I'd probably like an extra land, but to be fair, it's sort of got your early on casting cost items, so it's okay. So I'll keep this one.
Looks like a good spot for practice.
Yes, it does, Sparky. Alright, so we drew into the land that I was hoping for. Alright, so I've played the 1-drop Swarm Shambler. You can see there it's got the 1 +1/+1, just the single version. We've got those there. Now I have an option of either casting a Scavenging Ooze, or I can pump this up. So I think what I'll do is cast the Scavenging Ooze, and then I'll pass turn. Okay, the turn passes back to us. Play our 3rd land. I'll play a Yorvo. So he comes into play as a 4/4, and we'll basically just look and decide whether or not we want to lose either of these, which I don't at the moment, so I'll say no attacks. Okay, unfortunately for us, Sparky doesn't like that particular card, so we lose it. Very cool art. Okay, so our boards, they got changed fairly dramatically there. So when we brought this into play, Yorgo gets a +1/+1 counter on him because there's another green creature came into play. I'm going to attack with both. So our opponent decides in the form of Sparky that this is the logical stops and blocks, I should say, not stops. And we push through to do 4 damage.
Put you in your place, look. Keep your thoughts on the bar like Facebook. Yo, got that from Grace Boy. Send your podcast to the Grace Boy. Hey, put you in your place, look. Keep your thoughts on the bar like Facebook. Yo, got that from Grace Boy. Send your podcast to the Grace Boy.
Play the Great Hand. Do another 4 points of damage, and gain 2 points of life as well. Go down to 21. So we push in for another 4 points of damage. Basically at 2/5/5, sitting back ready to rock and roll. They've got trample and reach, which is quite useful. Hopefully we draw a creature, not another land. Okay. Unfortunately we draw a questing beast, which is good and bad. It's good in the sense that we'll be able to cast it, get a +1/+1 counter on it. Draw another creature. Okay, so now what we do is we'll do Castle Garenbrig. We pay 4 and tap this to get 6 mana. And then we'll cast this for 6. Get a +1/+1 counter on it and draw another land. Alright, so we attack in with everything. And that's the end of the game.
Congratulations, you've done it.
So you can see how the deck is designed to just continue to put pressure, and the pressure ramps up, gets larger. Even though we had a lot of quite a few of our creatures killed early game, we recovered from that pretty quickly. Okay, so this hand looks really good, so let's see how we go in this game. Say hello to our opponent, wish him love. I'm going to play a 1/1 Stone Coil Serpent just to get us started. We'll start building from here. Binary Coast. Play a Horn Beetle. Attack in with the Stone Coil Serpent, start the damage. Maybe up against some sort of Gruul deck by the looks of it. Play the Lovestruck Beast. So the Horn Beetle now triggers and gets a +1/+1 at the start of combat. 5/5. And we'll now be able to attack him with 4 power. Only getting 3 3 through, but that's enough to start off with.
Send your podcast to the grave.
The Wildborn Preserve is a really good card.
Send your podcast to the grave.
Okay, so push in for 4 damage.
Podcast to the grave, boy.
Pass turn. Having a second henge is not ideal, but we'll see what happens. I don't know if they are going to be able to destroy the original one. Okay, so they're pumping up the Wildborn Preserver. Oops. I'm going to attack him with the Death Touch. Questing Beast. Okay, dropping our opponent down to 7.
Send your podcast to the grave.
I'm not sure what my opponent's plan is at this point in time.
Send your podcast to the
Yeah.
grave, boy. Hey, put you in your place, look.
I do know that next turn they start making more Scoot Swarms, which is where we're at now.
Send your podcast to the grave, boy. Hey, put you in your place, look. Leave your thoughts on the bar like Facebook. Yo, got that from the boy. Send your podcast to the grave, boy.
Bringing another body into play there.
Send your podcast to the grave, boy. Send your podcast to the grave, boy. Send your podcast to the grave, boy.
End turn, see what happens here. So they, every time they play a land now, they'll gain another Scoot Swarm, which is where this deck, this type of deck, will really start to push over the top.
Send your podcast to the grave, boy.
Means that our Lovestruck Beast is unable to attack. And I'll put a +1/+1 on this Storm Shambler.
Send your podcast to the grave.
Our opponent realises that they're unable to stop all of that damage that's potentially going to come through. Alright, let's go to the next game. Okay, so this hand doesn't look too bad. I'd like it if we can draw another land, because we're going to get to a point pretty quickly where we're not going to be able to cast things otherwise. So we'll keep and say hello to our opponent, wish them all the best. Play a Swarm Shambler. So the reason that I play this first rather than say playing the Lovestruck Beast human creature token is because if the Swarm Shambler gets targeted to be killed by a burn spell or something like that, I still gain a 1/1 green insect creature, whereas if I play the Lovestruck Beast human creature token and it gets shot by a burn spell, for example, I don't get anything for it. I'm going to attack in. stop it, but you never know. Now, if they attack in now, when they attack in now, I'm just going to take the damage because next turn I intend to play a Love Struck Beast and make this a 3/3. No blocks. Take the 2. Are they going to create a 1/1 token or play something else? Play something else. A 3/1 is better, that's for sure. Alright, let's play the Love Struck Beast. Yeah. I'm going to attack him for 4 and see what happens. Pass turn. Play a Stone Coil Serpent and attack in for 5. Oh my gosh. Okay. That did not expect that to happen, that's for sure. Basically, just as much as possible, try and empty their graveyard. If they attack in with their Legion Angel, I will block it. Attacking for 11. We're really pushing the damage now. Drop them down to 4. Okay, so we're at 30 life, they're on 4. They do have quite a few cards to cast, but I don't like their chances at this point in time. I think they're probably going to scoop it up with them, I guess. Maybe not. Okay. So I've got a 5/4 Angel now. Okay, so before we go to my turn, I'm just going to make my swarm shambler slightly larger. Play another land. Play this as a creature by itself. At this point in time, we're basically hoping that they make some less favourable choices when it comes to blocks. So they can give their Hello Blades indestructible. That's alright. At that point, we just pass it back to them. See what happens. Okay, so we get there. Okay, so this is not a bad hand, so let's see what our opponent's got. Say hi to them. Wish them good luck. Play one of the 1/1 human tokens. I'm going to go low to the ground. Excuse me. Yep. Play another land. Play the Orvo. Attack the 3. Drop my opponent down to 13. Definitely bringing up the land super quick. Kill their extra mana. Move them down to 2. We get there. So you can see there how quickly this deck can get into a position where it can cause maximum damage. Alright, on to the next one. Okay, so this looks like a fairly good hand all in all. Let's see how it performs. This hand looks like it will curve out quite well, so we'll have to see what happens. We've got all of the elements, so next turn we play an old growth troll, turn after that we play a questing beast. We'll see if it plays out that way, but that's what we'll aim for. Drops them down to 18. I take 5. Okay, so my opponent basically has the capability of, if they have a wrath effect, causing some serious damage, we'll just keep casting cards as quick as we can. Alright, so play another land, play another troll. Play the ooze. Go to our graveyard. And then move on to the attack step. 2 points of damage. Take them down to 11. Thinking the ooze is the one that's in trouble, as it were. Alright, let's go on to the attack step. Do 6 damage here. Cancel that. Pass it to 7. See what happens here. If they have a wrath effect, they have a wrath effect, but otherwise we win this game. Okay, so they're probably in the tank trying to work out which way to go forward. It's quite possible they've got wrath. Unfortunately for them, they did not. So we get there. Alright, cool.